Before the storm, the pre-pandemic world, the global economy in early 2020 was not without its challenges. Trade tensions, particularly between the United States and China, created uncertainty. Growth in major economies had slowed, and many countries were grappling with high levels of debt. Despite these issues, few predicted the scale of the disruption that was to come. Global supply chains were humming, connecting producers and consumers across continents. Financial markets, though not without volatility, generally reflected optimism about the future. The interconnectedness of the global economy, a source of efficiency and growth, also created vulnerability. The just-in-time inventory systems favored by many businesses left little room for error or disruption. The reliance on global travel for tourism, business and education meant that a highly contagious virus could spread rapidly across borders. The relative stability of the global financial system, built on decades of integration, would be put to the test. The world was not prepared for a pandemic of COVID-19's scale and speed. The sudden stop COVID-19's immediate economic shock. The initial impact of the pandemic was a sudden stop in economic activity. Lockdowns and travel restrictions implemented to slow the spread of the virus brought entire sectors to a standstill. Airlines grounded their fleets, factories fell silent, and shops closed their doors. Consumers, confined to their homes and facing uncertainty about the future, drastically reduced their spending. This sudden drop in demand reverberated through global supply chains, disrupting production and distribution. The immediate economic consequences were stark. Millions of people lost their jobs as businesses were forced to lay off workers or shut down entirely. Unemployment soared and economic output contracted at an alarming rate. The services sector, heavily reliant on face-to-face interactions, was particularly hard hit. Tourism, hospitality, and retail suffered massive losses. The financial markets, reflecting the panic and uncertainty, experienced extreme volatility. Stock prices plummeted and investors sought safe havens. The global nature of the pandemic meant that no country was immune to its economic fallout. Even those that managed to contain the virus early on suffered as demand from their trading partners dried up. The crisis exposed the fragility of the interconnected global economy, highlighting the risks associated with just-in-time inventory systems and the reliance on global supply chains. The unprecedented nature of the shock left governments, businesses, and individuals scrambling to adapt. The policy response. Governments and central banks take action. Faced with a crisis of unprecedented scale, governments and central banks around the world took swift and decisive action. Unprecedented fiscal stimulus packages were launched, aiming to support businesses and individuals affected by the economic downturn. Direct payments to households, expanded unemployment benefits, and loan programs for businesses became common features of the policy response. Central banks slashed interest rates to near zero and injected liquidity into financial markets to prevent a credit crunch. These measures, while necessary to cushion the blow of the pandemic, came at a cost. Government debt levels soared as spending increased and tax revenues plummeted. The long-term consequences of this debt accumulation remain a subject of debate. Central banks, by pumping money into the economy, risked fueling inflation in the future. The scale and scope of the policy response underscored the severity of the crisis and the determination of policymakers to prevent a complete economic collapse. The effectiveness of these policies varied across countries. Some nations, with strong social safety nets and well-coordinated responses, managed to mitigate the worst effects of the pandemic. Others, with weaker institutions and limited fiscal space, faced more severe economic consequences. The crisis highlighted the importance of robust public institutions and the need for international cooperation in addressing global challenges. Section 4. Structural shifts, adapting to a post-pandemic world. The pandemic accelerated existing trends and triggered new ones, leading to structural shifts in the global economy. The adoption of digital technologies already underway was supercharged as businesses and individuals sought ways to operate remotely. E-commerce, online education, and telemedicine experienced explosive growth. The shift towards remote work became more widespread, prompting companies to rethink their office spaces and work arrangements. The pandemic also exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains, prompting businesses to diversify their sourcing and build greater resilience into their operations. The trend towards regionalization gained momentum, with companies seeking to shorten supply chains and reduce their reliance on distant suppliers. The crisis also highlighted the importance of sustainability and resilience in the face of global challenges. Businesses and governments alike began to prioritize investments in renewable energy, climate change mitigation, and public health infrastructure. These structural shifts, while initially driven by the pandemic, are likely to have lasting effects on the global economy. The accelerated adoption of digital technologies will continue to transform industries and reshape work patterns. The push for more resilient and sustainable supply chains will lead to changes in production and consumption patterns. The crisis has served as a wake-up call, prompting businesses and governments to rethink their priorities and adapt to a world where disruptions are more frequent and unpredictable. Section 5: Scars and Opportunities, the long-term economic outlook. The COVID-19 pandemic will leave lasting scars on the global economy. The loss of life, the disruption to education, and the increase in poverty will have long-term consequences. The accumulation of debt by governments and businesses will weigh on future growth. The pandemic also exposed and exacerbated existing inequalities, disproportionately affecting vulnerable communities. However, the crisis also created opportunities for positive change. The accelerated adoption of digital technologies has the potential to boost productivity and improve access to services. The shift towards more resilient and sustainable supply chains can create new markets and jobs. The increased focus on public health and social safety nets can lead to a more equitable and resilient society. The long-term economic outlook will depend on the choices made by governments, businesses, and individuals in the years to come. Investment in education, infrastructure, and innovation will be crucial for driving sustainable growth. Addressing inequality and promoting social cohesion will be essential for building a more resilient and inclusive society. The lessons learned from the pandemic can guide us towards a better future, one where we are better prepared for the challenges ahead. Section 6: What we learned. Lessons from the COVID-19 crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic provided a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the importance of international cooperation in addressing shared challenges. It highlighted the fragility of just-in-time inventory systems and the need for greater resilience in supply chains. The crisis underscored the crucial role of governments in providing social safety nets and supporting businesses during times of crisis. The pandemic also demonstrated the power of human ingenuity and resilience. Scientists around the world collaborated to develop vaccines in record time. Businesses adapted their operations and found new ways to serve their customers. Individuals showed remarkable resilience in the face of adversity, supporting their communities and caring for their loved ones. The lessons learned from the COVID-19 crisis can guide us as we navigate an increasingly complex and uncertain world. By prioritizing investment in public health, education, and innovation, we can build a more resilient and prosperous future. By embracing cooperation and solidarity, we can overcome global challenges and create a more equitable and sustainable world for all.